Uno, una, unos, unas. You have a couple of explanations here. One, una, unos, unas before a noun, and then how these can take the place of a noun. Let's look at both of them. Well, first, think about this. Uno. Uno significa uno. Okay, the number. Actually, number one can be masculine, it can be feminine, it can be masculine plural, feminine plural. When we're counting, usually it's going to be only uno or una, well, every time. Usually it'd be uno, sometimes una. When you're counting, like uno, dos, tres, it's never going to be unos. Okay. It's only going to be that way. Most people would say uno, although I have heard people say una, but they are probably referring to something feminine. For example, let's say we're looking at a map of Cancun and the different beaches at Cancun. So, and you're counting the beaches. You might say una, dos, tres. But you don't have to. You don't have to consider that playa, beach, is feminine. But some people do that. But otherwise, most people would just say uno. Okay? Now, let me write out, like this. Uno, una, unos, unas. Okay? This way, you can see, let me do it this way, a little bit more clearly the changes. Okay? These are the changes that you would expect with adjectives that end in O or A, or nouns that end in O or A and take gender and number. Okay? And so the way I want you to think about this is that the number one is actually the same thing as the article. For example, hay un libro en la mesa. Well, how many books are there? There's one book. Okay, this un, you might be looking at that and translating that as a book, one book. But if it's it's usually just going to be one book. Okay? If you want to say there are some books on the table, hay unos libros en la mesa. There are some books on the table. Okay, but how else would you be able to say that? You could only say that really as one if you want to count the exact number. So what's happening here to uno? Why don't I say hay uno libro? I know some of you sometimes you'll write that or you will say that, hay uno libro. Just remember that uno before a masculine singular noun, okay, becomes un. So it drops, you have to drop the O. Okay, so we would drop that. Okay, so rather than saying hay uno libro, you say hay un libro. The second part of the explanation right here talks about how these words can be pronouns. So if you leave out the noun, okay, if you take that out and you just focused on the number, it would be wrong to say hay un. Well, we're trying to say there's one. Okay, so then we would take back this O, okay, and put it there. Hay uno. How many books are there on the table? Hay uno. if somebody asks you, ¿cuántos hay? ¿Cuántos libros hay en la mesa? You could say, hay un libro en la mesa, o hay uno. There's one book on the table, there's one book, or there's one. Now something a little bit similar to uno, una, unos, unas is the numbers. Okay, the numbers from 1 to 1,000. So actually, when you get to over 100, you change cien to ciento, ciento uno. Okay, but when you get to the hundreds, 200 to 999, you're gonna make the numbers agree in gender and number with the noun. So here you have some good examples. 300 carros, 400 pesos, 420 pesos, sorry. 300 personas, 400 páginas. Okay, and then, so I jumped ahead a little bit, but that's kind of similar to what we're doing with uno. Then, finally, when you use tener, don't use un or una if it's understood that there's only one. Okay. If you ever go to Europe and you stay at one of the smaller hotels there, this might be one of your questions. ¿Hay baño? Is there a bathroom? You might be surprised to know that sometimes in Europe you share your bathroom with other rooms. And if you ask ¿hay baño?, you might be wondering if there's one in your particular room. ¿Hay baño en la habitación? Is there a bathroom in my room? Okay, so if you think there's only one, you wouldn't say hay un baño. Okay, you're wondering simply if one exists.